It's time for the Phil Ferguson Show.
Buongiorno tutti. Hello, everybody. This is Phil Ferguson, and you are listening to the cleverly titled Phil Ferguson Show. This is show number 207. It is late March 2017, and last week, on March 19th, I was on the Atheist Experience. So what a great joy for me. I actually was quite nervous because I'm used to this podcast where I just sit here and talk into the microphone and imagine all the people listening. There I actually had an audience, and I was really concerned I would be intimidated by the cameras, because when I did the episode with Mr. Deity, it kind of freaked me out. But this was very different, very casual setting, and lots of lights and multiple cameras, not one super mega massive camera like we used with Mr. Deity. That kind of got into my head. But, we try new things. We do new experiences. And sadly, our first caller that slipped through, was screened by the call screeners, was a crank call and just wanted to say dirty words on the air. Well, congratulations. You did it. Really kind of a waste of everybody's time, but we had that. And the second person desperately, so desperately wanted to argue with Tracy and I. I think it was the Kalam cosmological argument. And it's kind of funny, and Tracy and I both busted up because it was the one thing I had told her in the day in advance that's not my thing. I don't do philosophical arguments. Unfortunately, during the show, I said I don't do arguments, which was quite a comical thing to say, but I don't do philosophical arguments. I don't see the point to it, and as I said on the show, I simply consider it verbal masturbation. Nothing is gained from it, nothing is achieved or accomplished, no evidence is presented. And I know there are plenty of people that actually consider a philosophical argument to be evidence. I am not one of them. I understand that I might be wrong. I get that. But from all practical purposes, it doesn't do anything. I have never, ever met anyone, and I'm sure there's somebody out there, I've never met anyone who has been convinced that a religion is true because of a philosophical argument. I'm also not really aware of anyone that has been talked out of their religion because of a philosophical argument. So I like other arguments. So I do like arguments. I don't like philosophical arguments. So I was trying to explain to the caller that that's not something I'm into, not something I'm versed at or skilled at. If they want to talk to one of the other hosts that is really good at that, they're free to call back another time. And he was trying to, and with the Kalam, the ultimate result is that there is a designer, apparently. And it's a flawed argument. And like I said, there's people who are way better at it than me that can explain to you why it's terribly flawed. But I wanted to jump to what he was going to do next. And so I conceded the point that there was a designer. I conceded the point that it was a deity. So poof, now I'm a deist. Now what? And he kept wanting to go back into the argument because he had no point other than, I guess, using the argument to convince me genuinely that there was a deist or a god. So me accepting it for the sake of continuing the argument defeated the entire purpose of his call, and he got very frustrated, and it became kind of comical. But otherwise, we went on with the show. I had a nice time and got to visit with everyone after the show, and we had a wonderful dinner after the show. So if you're ever in Austin, please do. They welcome you. Go check that out. So that was great fun. Unfortunately, I did get a little bit of a cold from my trip to Austin. By a little bit, I say it's taken me a full week to get over it, which is why this show is so late at least one of the reasons. The other reason is that I could not figure out how to possibly get this show done and another show done before I leave on my week-long speaking tour, and I was trying to make the gap without a show to be as small as possible. So there's going to be a good week plus before the next show. And just in case you weren't aware, real quick reminder, on April 1st, no, I'm sorry, let's start with March 31st, I will be at the Washington Area Secular Humanists, and that is going to be in Rockville, Maryland, at the Washington Area Secular Humanists. I believe the building is called the Executive Office Building Auditorium. I don't have the address on me, but you can contact the Washington Area Secular Humanists to find them. If you're in that area, Washington, D.C., the talk will actually be in Rockville, Maryland. So please come check me out or visit them. If you're in the area, you probably should be a member. So go, and that's from 6 to 8 p.m. At least that's what I have in my calendar. So check for the precise time. I usually plan on being at these events an hour or two in advance, just because you never want to not find the place or not find parking and, miss your own fucking talk. That's embarrassing as hell. The next day, April 1st, I will be at York, Pennsylvania, and that is going to be at the UUCY Carriage House in St. George, 925 South St. George Street in York, Pennsylvania. That is a morning talk. Please note, April 1st, that is a morning talk on April 1st, April Fool's Day in York, Pennsylvania. The very next day, April 2nd, I am in Allentown, Pennsylvania, and that is 522 West Maple Street, Allentown, Pennsylvania. Also a morning talk. I believe the official time is 10, but it might be 10:30 or 11. I actually have 9:30 on my calendar because, like I said, I plan to be there plenty of time in advance. And that is going to be at the Bradbury Sullivan LGBT Center. And that is put on by the Lehigh Valley Humanists. So you can check them out or contact them. If you need more information on any of this and you can't find the local contact, of course, check Facebook, Meetup, do Google search for their webpage. You can send me an email, phil@polarisfinancialplanning.com, and I will try to respond to you. But keep in mind, I might be traveling, and I'm going to have a really hard time getting back to you. Also on April 2nd, so that morning talk in Allentown, and then I go to South Jersey, the South Jersey Humanists. Not sure if it's actually in South Jersey, because I don't know my geography well enough. It's in Egg Harbor City, New Jersey, 75 Pomona Road, Egg Harbor City, New Jersey. And that is also at a Universalist Unitarian facility, the South Jersey Humanists. And again, that's going to be in the evening, 6 or 7 p.m. in Jersey. I guess I'll call it that. And then on the 3rd is my last talk in Philadelphia, the Philadelphia area, and that is at 5 South Bryn Mawr. And again, I don't know how to say that, so please forgive me if I'm saying that wrong. 5 South Bryn Mawr Avenue in Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that's really close to Philadelphia. And that is going to be in the Ludington Library. So please come visit me for that. And then the next day, my plan is to take a day of rest and relaxation and maybe tour some sites in Philadelphia before my flight back. So I will be out of the office for a good solid week. So please forgive me if I'm not responsive, if I don't respond to your email. I'm still trying to actually catch up from being on the Atheist Experience. Because of that exposure, I did receive a new flood of emails. I'm still trying to respond to every email that I get, but it is getting to the edge of being difficult. So forgive me if I do, or if it's a very short answer. I want to respond to every email, but at the rate things are growing, there may be a time where I may not be able to do that. So with all of that going on, of course, I'm going to skip, because I'm really lame, a financial segment per se, because I have 2 interviews already in the can, and I don't want either one of these to wait 2 weeks for you to hear them. So we're going to hear from Fritz, who is part of Mythicist Milwaukee, about their upcoming convention and their organization and the movie that they're going to bake. I think it's Batman versus Jesus or something like that. You're going to want to hear that interview. And then the second interview is with a guy who runs a YouTube channel called CosmicSkeptic. And we're going to play a sample from one of his YouTube videos in the interview. And, of course, you'll want to check out his work on YouTube. You're going to want to check out Mythicists of Milwaukee. A lot of great stuff. So I'm going to kind of cut this intro stuff short. And hopefully I can see you somewhere around Washington, D.C., New Jersey, Pennsylvania in the next week or two. Please say hello, and please forgive me in advance if we've met before and I've forgotten your name. I'm not as good at that as I used to be, so feel free to say hello, though. I'd love to meet every one of you. And we'll take a little break and start with the interviews. All right, listeners, we have another special guest, a really good treat for anyone who's in the Midwest or even further away. I have Fritz Blandon, and he sometimes is known as Antonio. See, you like that? I said that with an Italian accent. That worked for you?
I do like that, and that could also that was close enough to be a Spanish person with Italian heritage. I'll say that.
There you go. We'll just pretend like
an
tonight,
Argentinian.
Pretend like tonight is Prince Spaghetti night, and we'll be all set.
Great.
And Fritz is on the Myth Information podcast, and we've got a whole bunch of announcements we're trying to get to the listeners here real quick. So if you're driving, pull over. You're going to want to hear all this. So, Fritz, what the fuck is going on?
Well, the podcast actually used to be named the Mythicist Milwaukee Show. And that could be found on Stitcher and iTunes primarily, although we are some other sources, but those are the main two sources. We're now being renamed Myth-Informed Podcast, which is brought to you by Mythicist Milwaukee, and it's actually being powered by WTMJ Mobile. So we are in the works right now with WTMJ, which is Wisconsin's largest radio, producer. They reach, states outside of Wisconsin as well. And they reached out to us because they want to diversify their conservative listenership. And, we are a secular podcast. We pretty much aim to separate facts from fiction in the realms of religion, culture, and current events. And every week, our hosts discuss some relevant topics with experts and entertainers from various fields around the globe. And our hosts are not afraid to delve into topics mirrored in some political correctness and taboo as well. And we've been doing this for a little over 3 years now, and we've been getting a little bit of recognition now by being invited to WTMJ's podcast group that they're piloting. So we're really excited about this.
That sounds fantastic. I want to make sure we get this correct. It's the word myth, M-Y-T-H, information pod. Is that what we're going to look for?
No, it is Myth-Informed. It is one word, but it plays. It does play with a little wordplay. But we do hold conferences, which thankfully you've been a part of in coming to our conferences with the Myth-Information Conference.
Right.
We're now we're ready to do our fourth Myth-Information Conference on September 30th later this year. So we wanted to connect that to our podcast. So in connection and due to us now being connected to WTMJ Mobile, we wanted to experiment with a little bit of rebranding. So we are now the Myth-Informed Podcast, which is, again, brought to you by Mythicist Milwaukee and powered by WTMJ Mobile.
Excellent. And this conference thing, what's that going to be? You're going to have like 2 speakers and 5 people show up? What's going on?
Well, we're going to have a lot more than 5 people and a couple people show up and speak. The Myth-Information Conference 4, which, as I just said, will be on the 30th of September 2017, will be held at the historic Pabst Theater in downtown Milwaukee. Big names are coming. We have three of our speaker sets. One of them is actually going to be a pair. Our first speaker, or one of our first speakers, will be Melissa Chen, so Melissa Chen works with Faisal Saeed Al-Muhtar, and he's actually going to be one of the debaters. We have also, I'm jumping ahead though, but we have Armored Skeptic and Shoe Head, which are two juggernauts really when it comes to YouTube celebrities, when it comes to speaking about social justice issues and the movements that are happening in the U.S. And then Dave Rubin. We just lined up Dave Rubin to be one of our speakers, and we're still working with him to figure out who he'll be interviewing, because he's going to be doing a live interview at our conference, similar to what he does on his online shows. Then we have the Buzz Belief debate. So this is actually going to be the third Buzzed Belief, but this one's going to be another big one. This one's going to be Asra Nomani and Faisal Saeed Al-Muhtar debating Islam in the age of Trump. And, thankfully, Matt Dillahunty, which is very well known in the atheist world, he's actually going to be moderating our debate. So, again, that Buzz Belief debate is a huge piece that goes in addition to these speakers that will be starting. And then towards the end of towards the nighttime, we'll be having a movie that we're actually producing alongside King's Tower Productions and Pink Lady Media. So King Towers Production is the company of our director, Joseph K. Richards, and he owns King's Tower Productions, and you can find him as well at spadehardclub.com. So he's producing the movie Batman and Jesus, and we'll be premiering this movie at the Paps in the evening at around 7 p.m. or so, 7 or 8 p.m. That's when the movie is scheduled to play. And through this movie, we have a number of other individuals that have been invited as special guests that have some of them have been in the movie, like Richard Carrier, Aaron Raw, David Fitzgerald, but we're also inviting other special guests such as Seth Andrews, Paul Provenza, who's narrating the movie, and Bryce Blankenagel, who's another big name in the podcast world with his Mormon
Naked Mormonism
based shows. But that's not it. We also have a VIP after party where we've invited all these guests to come. And you can buy these tickets at mythicistmilwaukee.com. You can buy the general admission tickets, which includes everything I've just mentioned except the VIP. But for the added cost of the VIP party, we're going to bring all these individuals to the after party. But then we have a special guest speaker, Ron Miscavige. And Ron Miscavige is the father of David Miscavige, who is currently the leader of Scientology. So he is going to be, having a very small, private, discussion, conversation speech to all of these big names and anybody who gets the VIP tickets. You're obviously going to be there because you've gotten yourself a VIP ticket, and it's going to be a really special event. So we're really hoping that we're creating something really special here in Milwaukee. You can see at mythicistmilwaukee.com, you can see, all the other conferences that we've been able to bring to Milwaukee. But at this point right now, we're just trying to get bigger and better and even more relevant and diverse, because the conversations that go on in America and in the world are so diverse that we want to be a part of it, never forgetting as well that, we do want to be a heavy part of the secular movement, the mythicist position, which we, push during our podcast, especially. So, what do you think? Do you think it sounds like an interesting event? Phil?
Hell yeah, man. I can't hardly wait. Matter of fact, I know you guys have been working on the Batman and Jesus movie for quite some time. So
yeah, it's I'll tell you, Joseph K. Richards, that director, incredible talent. You can find him online, even through our page. You can find 3 series. They're Holy Shit series, which he delves into, like the top 10 commandments. Everyone thinks of the 10 commandments. He goes through the fact that there's more than 10 commandments. So he dubbed it the top 10 commandments. And then he delved into some other topics like top 10 mythical figures and other topics. And he just came up with a God cast, where he plays God, and God is producing his first podcast. So it's the Godcast, and he just goes on this podcast to answer everyone's prayers and calls as to why Donald Trump was elected president, and that's definitely a hoot. So I'm definitely looking forward to his second Godcast show, where he gives some feedback to any listener feedback to God. So it's really funny. He's so talented. So we're really lucky to be working with him, and he's just he's so talented, but he's just one part of this huge organization now that that we've grown. We're up to about 15 consistent, strong individuals that bring in just so many different talents, and individuals that are also jack of all trades, that plug in so many different holes, like engineers, individuals that can do hosting, individuals that have finance backgrounds, videography, editing. This can't be done just with myself and Sean Fritz, who is the president of Mythicist Milwaukee. I'm the vice president, and we co-founded it, but we would not be anywhere near where we are. We doubt we would even be speaking to you right now had it not been for the input and collaboration of all these individuals that have found value in the organization.
Well, I know last year I was honored to come up to Milwaukee to give a talk, and I think that's where I saw some of the videos. What is it? The holy shit videos? Is that?
Yeah, the holy shit videos. Yeah, that's right. And you can find those on our page, the Mythicist Milwaukee YouTube page, and just look up holy shit, and you'll see the really funny videos.
Were really well done. So that's exciting. And I thought I saw sample clips or just a little teaser from Batman and Jesus. So I can't wait to see that. And that's all going to happen, and much more. And of course, the VIP after party, all of that. It's packed in one big day, right?
Yeah, and the other thing too that we're working on as well is that if there are those individuals that are just too far out. I mean, we have people that are going to be flying in just on their own, just to come to this event because it's so unique.
Right.
We really want to begin to compete against national conferences and programs and shows. And we, for those individuals that can't, just fly in for the conference, we're also working on providing a live stream of the conference as well. We will be, having a fee for the live stream because, hosting a conference like this, it takes a lot of money and a lot of funding. We, as an organization, haven't gotten to the point yet where we've been able to, get some large private donors to join in the group. So, we fund it on the front end as an organization. So we have one major donor. When I say major donor, he's funding the buzzed belief portion, which is again the Ashra Nomani Faisal Saeed Al Mutar, Islam in the Age of Trump with Matt Dillahunty. So he's funding that piece, but we're funding the rest of the conference. So in order to be able to make sure that we're sustainable and that we can continue bringing in these types of events to the Milwaukee area or to the Midwest, if we decide, to take on the Myth Information Conference somewhere else, in the area, maybe Chicago. I mean, we haven't gotten to that point yet, but if we want to continue this and be sustainable, at this point, we need to charge, so you can buy those tickets again at mythicistmilwaukee.com, or if you want to see it on the live stream, we will be updating everyone on our website and on our Facebook and Twitter to where they can
and of course,
access that live feed.
I'm proud to say that my business Polaris is a proud sponsor again of the conference, and these tickets. I mean, what are you gonna sell these for? $250, $350, something like that?
Well, the VIP tickets are definitely more expensive. The general admission tickets right now are $55.
Oh.
And, they include everything that has been mentioned except that is for the VIP party. Sure. Now, the VIP party right now, as it stands, is at about $125 for those tickets. But, if you can make it for that, I mean, that would be amazing. And we also have, of course, our sponsors, such as Polaris, which will, you'll be tabling at our event as well. So, again, you are a big reason for why, we're confident that we're going to be able to, make this sustainable. The movie, if you wanted to come just for the movie, we're going to be selling tickets for just the movie portion for $12. But again, the general admission ticket includes that movie. Sponsorships.
I've got an idea.
I was going to say sponsorships are $300 for anybody who would like to table as well
nice.
in our event.
I got a crazy idea. I wondered if I could possibly talk you into, just for listeners of the Phil Ferguson Show, giving away 2 tickets to my listeners. What do you think? Can I talk you into that?
Let's do it.
All right.
Let's give away 2 general admission tickets. For any of your listeners that, let's see, how can we do this? Well, what we can do is the listeners of the Phil Ferguson Show can email the Mythicist Milwaukee Gmail, and that is Mythicist Milwaukee, MYTHICIST, Milwaukee, MILWAUKEE @gmail.com. And 1 week from today, what we'll do is we'll take all those names and we will randomly select a winner, and we'll give away 2 general admission tickets to those individuals. So, we'll
listeners
reply to your email, and we'll give you 2 general admission tickets. But what you do have to do is mention the Phil Ferguson Show and the Myth Information Conference, and that you heard this advertisement for the Myth Information Conference on the Phil Ferguson Show, and hopefully you're a lucky winner.
Excellent. So if you didn't catch the email address, go back, listen to it slowly, go look at their website, find their Gmail email address, send them an email, and make sure you put that you want the free tickets for the Myth Information, God, I can't say it myself, the Myth Information Conference, and you're a listener of the Phil Ferguson Show. You've got to have that. I would put that all in the subject line, and then Fritz will randomly pick from all the people that respond, and it might just be 1, because this show's not huge, but it might be 100. I don't think it's going to be that big, but whoever sends it, he's going to pick 1 person to win 2 tickets. Fritz, thank you. That is awesome.
Not a problem.
Is there any big stuff that we've missed?
I will say, let's get a little creative. If you have a spouse or a significant other, have them send an email too. It may double your chances to win those. All right. Those free tickets.
Fair enough. You run it however you want, but someone who's a listener, and you got to make sure you mention the show.
Absolutely.
That's so you don't lose the email. Someone's going to get a free pair of tickets, and maybe when July or August rolls around, can you come back and give us finalized details? Because I know you're working on all kinds of people that haven't quite firmed up yet, and we can really pump it again in a few months.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, we've done a pretty good job of firming up, the Buzz Belief participants, the speakers. We've already signed, for instance, Dave Rubin. We know that he's a big name in the movement. We've already signed the contract and put her name on the dotted line. So, we've got the big names coming. So, we will definitely, if we're lucky enough to come on your show, we're hoping that all we'll end up doing is just reiterating what's just been said today. But Ron Miscavige is definitely going to be at the VIP party. The movie is definitely happening. Seth Andrews, says he's come verbally. Hopefully by then, we've already gotten his plane ticket and his hotel room settled. So we all know that he's on his way. But these names are pretty solid as it comes right now. Unless an emergency happens, which sometimes happens in life, these individuals will be a part of Misinformation Conference 4.
I like it. Well, Fritz, thank you so much for coming on the Phil Ferguson Show and telling everyone about Mythinformation in Milwaukee. Again, September 30th, 2017. I will be there. I hope to see many, many of my listeners there. Thank you so much for your time.
No, not a problem. This has actually been, this has absolutely been a pleasure and an honor to be on the show. Thank you very much for having us.
Hey, thanks, Fritz.
Absolutely. Have a great day.
An atheist loves his fellow man instead of a God. An atheist thinks that heaven is something for which we should work now, here on earth, for all men together to enjoy. An atheist knows that he can get no help through prayer, but that he must find in himself the inner conviction and strength to meet life, to grapple with it, to subdue it, to enjoy it. An atheist knows that only in a knowledge of himself and a knowledge of his fellow man can he find the understanding that will help to a life of personal and societal fulfillment. An atheist then seeks to know himself and his fellow rather than to know a God. An atheist knows that a hospital should be built instead of a church. An atheist knows that a deed must be done instead of a prayer said. An atheist strives for involvement in life and not escape into death. He wants disease conquered, poverty vanished, war eliminated. He wants man to understand and love man. He wants an ethical way of life. He knows that he cannot rely on God, cannot channel action into prayer, and that there is no hope for any troubles, solutions in a hereafter. He knows that we are our brother's keeper. He knows that we're the keeper of our own lives, that we are responsible people, and that the job is here, and the time is now.
All right, everybody, welcome back. This is, of course, Phil Ferguson, and you are still listening to the cleverly titled Phil Ferguson Show. With me now, I have Alex J. O'Connor, and his YouTube channel is called CosmicSkeptic. Alex, how are you?
I'm doing fabulously. How are you, Mr. Ferguson?
You can call me Phil. That'd be just fine. And it's the magic of technology. I'm talking to you from somewhere in England. Is that the proper?
Indeed. Yes, Oxford, the city of Oxford in England, yes. I must admit, I don't know where you are currently.
Well, I'm in an undisclosed... No, I'm in Champaign, Illinois for a few more weeks, and then I will be moving close to Chicago, Illinois, at least from a planet perspective, because I'm sure you don't know many of the cities within the state of Illinois.
Yes, I must admit I'm sort of lacking in that area.
I do know that when we traveled, especially when we were in Italy, we would go. They would ask us where we're from, and we say Champaign, and they have no idea. And I would say close to Chicago. And the two things that we would get in Italy were either Chicago Bang Bang, because of gangsters, or Chicago Bulls. The Chicago Bulls are huge in Italy, and next time I go back, really? I'm going to take Chicago Bulls baseball caps because they would go crazy for those. And, of course, we were in England, and one thing that struck me as really odd, we were talking about this pre-show, for those who care, who can't afford, who can't buy. I mean, I don't have the pre-show available, but we were talking about when I was in England, in London, and I rode a cab and went to tip the guy, and he refused me like 3 times, like Judas kind of thing, and I finally had to just leave him the pounds, and it's a weird thing. Is that not normal in London?
Well, yes, like I was saying before, I find that the tipping culture of America to be quite strange. I mean, they set prices for a reason. I mean, we tip our waiters. I think that's about as far as it goes. If I'm feeling particularly generous, I might offer a little extra to my barber or something of the sort. But no, I certainly wouldn't like to be expected to give tips. That just seems so alien to me.
Now, when you tip your bar bill, what kind of money are we talking about here?
My barber, my hairdresser.
Oh, your barber. I'm sorry. I mean, are you tipping a percentage? Is it a pound? Is it 5 pennies?
Me,
what?
It sounds bad. It's perhaps an example of how no good deed is really done that's not in self-interest. But a lot of the time, I just do it to avoid unnecessary change. If it's if it's near to an amount that I can pay with a single note, then I'll just round it up for convenience. That's my general rule of thumb. Unless, of course, it's been a particularly bad haircut, then I think it's sort of a subtle way of saying I didn't like it, because we're far too polite to let the barber know that we didn't like the haircut. So the only way we can really get around it is to not tip and insist upon getting the £3 change.
Well, it's always curious because in the United States, in big cities, if you take a taxi, often, at least in my experience, the taxi cab driver will make a mistake and take a wrong turn, which will result in a larger taxi cab fare. And they know that it's going to be a bigger bill, and they don't want you to be upset. So what they do is they say, oh, I'm going to now turn it off while I get back on path and get you to where you're going to go. So you end up with a $16 cab fare when you should have had $18, and if he had left it on, it would have been $20. And so when you get out, you're supposed to be thankful, and you give him the full $20, even though the cab fare is only $15 or $16.
Indeed, and wasted some of your time by taking the wrong direction.
Right. Now, in Italy, they have a different trick where they have a button that they can hit for a return fee. So if it's €10 to go to a location, there's a discount if you return back. So it wouldn't be $10 back. It'd be, say, or €8 back. So it'd be a round trip of 18. And if you get in the cab and they see that you're a tourist, they'll hit that button and just charge you the 18, even though you're only going one way.
Ooh, well, that's that doesn't sound too friendly.
No, it's every culture is different, and so we had to try to be very careful with the cabs in Italy and even France. And then we come to England, and they wouldn't even take a tip. It's just a different culture.
Well, I think it just attests to our world famous politeness, almost as renowned as Canada's, I believe.
The politeness, and one thing that we had that was a shock. Our daughter was with us, and she was 17, and we went into a pub to order food, and they said, how old is this young lady? And I said, she's 17. And I said, we have to ask you to leave. And I said,
yeah.
What? Because I thought England was like most of Europe, where you can drink at any age, but apparently that's not the case.
Well, not quite. Well, I mean, you can if you know how to get away with it, but I think the general rule of thumb is a lot of pubs are only licensed to serve over 18s for anything. And of course, our drinking age is 18, so if you're over 18, you can do anything you want. But a lot of pubs are okay with younger people coming in, oftentimes, as long as they're not drinking, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, I also think that in the law, you are able to drink alcohol as someone who's over 16, as long as you have a meal, as far as I'm aware. And I think you have to be with somebody over 18, possibly at the same time. But yeah, there are ways around it.
Yeah.
But people are generally quite strict here. Yeah, I must admit.
The way we found around it is we walked out the front door and went into the next pub over and sat down, and they said, how old is the young lady? And I said, she's 18. And they said, okay.
That is a very fine technique that we often employ ourselves.
So I figured I'm not going to argue. I've already given away the information. I'll go to the next place and try a different strategy, and we'll see what happens. But so you have this little podcast, or not podcast, YouTube channel, the Cosmic Skeptic, or just Cosmic Skeptic, and that's not you. That's your channel.
That's correct. Well, I mean,
it is you.
The channel underwent some major changes. I've been through many phases with it, and after having a little spur doing educational videos as a channel called Knowledge Box. And that refers to the channel, by the way, not me. A mistake a lot of people made. They thought I was just being as egotistical as to call myself a knowledge box, which made me realize perhaps it wasn't the best choice of name. But I eventually decided to just go back to commentary, like what I do now. And I can't remember where the name came from for the life of me. I think I was on the internet somewhere and I said Cosmic, and I thought, well, that's a pretty fine word. I think originally the first thing that came to my mind was Cosmic Critic. I was going for the alliteration, but Cosmic Skeptic back then sounded just as awful, but I got used to Cosmic Skeptic. I thought it looked better written down, and so I made it like my temporary YouTube name, and then it just stuck, I suppose.
Well, I'm so clever that someone else had to come up with the name for my show. So,
well, it is an apt name.
Yeah, it is nice, and I do get a little bit of the alliteration you're talking about. It's the Phil Ferguson. So
yes, indeed. I did used to be, my channel did to just simply be Alex O'Connor, so I can empathize with that.
Aha. Now, I went through and listened to a good bunch of your videos, and a few of them have done surprisingly well, and I only feel comfortable saying that because that was the reaction I've garnered from you when you do next episodes. Yes. And I'm not sure if this is the biggest one, but it looks like it. Well over 300,000 views, Flat Earth.
That is, I believe, my second most popular video. I'd have to check, but yeah, that was a big one. It got me a lot of subscribers as well.
And so you're a Flat Earther then? I'm kidding.
No, as it happens. I don't think I probably wouldn't have been invited onto this show if I was. But no, in fact, I took the arduous task of actually trying to debunk some of their claims. And I did expect a lot of backlash from this small but very vibrant community. But I wasn't quite expecting the level of response that I got. But it was great fun.
Now, if you want to make a video that will create backlash, I can give you an idea.
Yeah?
9/11.
Oh, gosh.
Because it's nothing more than a conspiracy-based Americans want is someone from England telling them that it didn't really happen the way they think it did.
Well, this is where you have to balance the two very competitive qualities of virtue and intellectual honesty and views and money. But I think that the former kind of is a slightly more important to me than the latter. So I think I might steer clear of that topic altogether.
Fair enough. It's something I like to have a lot of fun with. Now, one of the videos I did listen to, what was this called? Arguments for God, episode 3. So you're creating a series of this for these arguments, and one of them you were talking about dogma and particularly how it affects children. And what I wanted to do is play about 2 minutes, maybe 2 minutes, 10 seconds of that, and then we can talk about that a little. Is that all right with you?
That's absolutely fine, as long as you pay me the royalties.
Oh, okay. Checks in the mail.
Joke. I am kidding.
Yeah,
of course.
That's
you
pounds,
feel
right?
free. You go ahead. I'll sit back and listen.
Hang on a second.
If you know anything about me, then you probably know that I'm not too fond of the idea of dogma, and I'm even less of a fan of bringing up children in any environment which parades it as a virtue. Now, I don't think I'm particularly alone in my view. In fact, I'd wager that most people, when asked to, would gladly denounce dogma and condemn those who are guilty of dispersing it. However, I'm also of the belief that a large number of these people completely misunderstand what it means to be dogmatic, and so are at risk of being entirely hypocritical. Disclaimer. Yes, I'm talking about organized religion. No, it's not the only type of dogma, and while I think it's possibly the most damaging, that's up for debate. But I certainly believe that religion is its most pestilential and life-defining manifestation, and also its most unwarrantedly permitted and socially forgivable form. I am fundamentally against the idea of state recognition of religion. And that means no religion in politics, no religion in public sector educational institutes, and no religion as a societal expectation gets any kind of a blessing from me. If you're going to call your 5-year-old son a Christian and send him to a Catholic school, then to me, you may as well be calling him a communist and sending him to a Marxist school. A child who is told what to believe, how to believe it, and to never doubt its authenticity by his school teachers, parents, peers, and politicians alike is a child living under the influence of dogmatism. And here's a peculiar thing. Many of the adults who bring up their children in such environments are the same adults who claim to recognize the dangers of dogmatism. In fact, the most common criticism I receive when talking about this issue is, well, look, I'm not like that. Yes, I bring up my child as a God-loving Christian, but I only teach them about the good bits, the New Testament, an omnibenevolent God, about Jesus and love and salvation. So here's what I say. Look, you may decide to teach your child your own adapted version of Christianity, or Islam, or Sikhism, or Judaism. You may decide to omit the condemnation of homosexuality in the Pentateuch, or the castigation of non-believers in the Quran, or the mindless genocidal tendencies of the God of the Bible. That's your decision to make. But here's the thing. It's still dogma.
All right, and so that was from Arguments for God, episode 3. And like I said, I really liked the fact of, labeling children of a specific religion and convincing them to believe things. Why don't you tell us about that video and what you were thinking when you did it?
Well, yes. Well, I make sort of two types of video, I like to think. One of which is the sitting in front of the desk talking to a camera, and the other is when I just sort of do a voiceover, put some images and animations and videos. Tend to be slightly more serious topics, and those generally stem from post-shower thoughts. I'll be in the shower and I'll be talking as if to an audience of many about the many adversities of faith, and a lot of the time I end up turning on a voice memo or writing it down or something, and eventually evolving it into this video. And this is an example. So I just was thinking about the ridiculousness. I used to listen to Richard Dawkins a lot, and I remember him saying, he made a documentary about faith schools. Fantastic watch. I couldn't tell you what it's called, but if you type in faith school Richard Dawkins on YouTube, it comes up. And he was just showing some of the things about faith schools which are just incredibly questionable. From everything from going into an Islamic school and looking at the scientific teachings that they had. But one thing that really stuck with me was when he was sat in the playground, and the children were all playing around, and he sat there going, "Oh, look, there goes an existentialist. Oh, there goes a Marxist. Oh, and just pointing out how ridiculous it is to ascribe these very complex political and religious ideologies to these children who couldn't even tell you what the word means, let alone the tenets of its adherents." And it just made so little sense to me, and I think about that a lot. And then I sort of try, because I went to a faith school for primary and secondary school, and I was trying to think. For me, the prospect of sort of going to school and having a mass or a reconciliation service was so normal to me. It was almost banal, and I was thinking to myself, I probably haven't recognized a lot of the things that were going on in these schools because it was so normal to me. And then I started thinking about it, and I thought about how influenced I was by some of the things I was taught. Everything from sex education or lack thereof to partaking in religious festivals and all sorts. It was crazy. And the fact that we can expect children to understand and adhere to these beliefs is absurd, nothing short of absurd. And one of the common defenses that you hear is this idea that, well, yes, I teach my children about my religion, but I only teach them the good bits, the kind bits, the bits that will help them to flourish. And to me, that's simply not good enough, because you can't teach the good bits without these children either yearning to find out or finding out for themselves the bits that go along with it, the other side of the coin, the evil bits which complement the good and oftentimes outweigh the good. And if you expect to be able to teach your child something as horrendous as the Bible or the tenets of Islam, you cannot expect for them to go their entire lives without figuring out that a lot of what is written in these holy scriptures is absolutely absurd.
This whole idea that you have this requisite worldview imposed upon you because of your parents, and I don't know, you seem young enough. Do you have kids yet?
I certainly don't.
You certainly not that you're aware of. But my kids are now 20 and 21, and for a good part of their lives, they went to a fundamentalist school. But I was also helping them learn how to think for themselves, so it didn't stick. So, whew,
Yes,
got really.
Well, it's not always dangerous. I almost think that had I not gone to a faith school, I would still be religious. Being exposed to the stories really helped me to start asking the right kinds of questions. So I think it depends on the child. I would be all for the abolition of faith schools. Although, having said that, I do think for certain individuals, they can actually help them to become a more critical thinker, because they're thrown into this environment where they're told not to question things, and they're told not to be skeptical. And that just, you tell a child not to eat the candy, and it will eat the candy.
Well, I understand, and I know that has worked throughout a lot of England and the United Kingdom and Europe as a whole. But I think a lot of the people that run religious schools over here, or your term for them, faith schools, are a little more ingenious and a little more sly. They don't show you the bad bits at all. They really, truly, well, at least they don't think of it as a bad bit, like the part where you're supposed to stone gays. That's okay. But they do stick to the love and the happiness, and they also paint a very, very negative picture. If you become an atheist, that means you've turned against God. It doesn't mean that you haven't accepted him, because everyone knows that he's real. And so it creates this bias, and they fight aggressively against education in general, that it sounds like your school may not have done that at all. They want you to think, and they want you to question, or at least somewhat.
Well, in our religious education classes, it was certainly like that. They do censor the content. They're not going to teach you about the condemnation of homosexuality. They're not going to teach you about the all of the slavery, or the basically they cut out the Old Testament and put it that way. However, well, except for the story of Genesis, take the story of Noah's Ark. All you have to do is ask why. There was Noah built an ark. Well, why? Well, because of the flood. And why was there a flood? Well, because the people were bad, so God did what? So he drowned them all. And suddenly you dig deep enough, and every single story has certain bits in it which will make you, raise your eyebrow. Jesus, this wonderful man who's going to come and save you. Well, save you from what? Oh, yeah, that's right. The eternal damnation bestowed upon us by the Heavenly Father. It makes no sense. And so even if you only teach the good bits, you're eventually going to come across roadblocks that you can't just explain away without saying simply, well, God said so, or that's just how it is, because children don't accept that as an answer. And if they can't get an answer from you, then they'll get it from Google.
Yeah, that is a big difference, because I know when I was 13 and I started to have questions, my parents quickly realized they could not answer the questions, and so they had me sit down with the minister for about an hour. And that was one of the most awkward hours of my entire life, and his pants did stay on. So, it was one of those things that you don't want to do that again. But I was surprised that he couldn't answer questions, and I didn't have the Google when I was 13. But now, you're exactly right. You sit down and you're not getting answers, or people don't want to give you answers, and you start searching and you type in something, what you think might be totally harmless, like CosmicSkeptic. And next thing you know, you find these videos that are just eviscerating religion in the most suave and polite British accent you could ever imagine.
I don't know about the accent. A lot of people. It does benefit me having this accent, because a lot of people are. I think it's more intrinsically trustworthy or something. You can say anything in an Oxfordian accent, and people will probably believe you.
I think there's merit to that. It's funny, when I was in Italy last time, I had multiple Italians tell me that when I speak Italian, I do so with a British accent. And I thought, I've always wanted a British accent. But apparently it's only when I speak Italian, so that's kind of a funny thing. Obviously,
I do wonder what the because we can't possibly. I mean, when an Italian comes to England, you can speaks English, you can hear the Italian accent. I do always wonder what a British accent sounds like when speaking another language, because of course we can't really perceive the difference.
Yeah, I know I can't, but apparently one or more of the programs that I used, obviously the person teaching me Italian also learned British or proper English, and so I picked it up in their Italian accent without knowing it. So that was kind of a cute thing for me to learn. So you've got this channel, and you've got lots of shows. You've talked about Islam. You've talked about contraception in the Catholic Church.
Yes.
Is there a favorite video that you've made?
Good question. I couldn't tell you my absolute favorite. I think the Flat Earth video was absolutely fun just because of the comments and the sort of reactions, and I got my sort of general discussion, but also this new community of people coming over, and just some of the comments you just wouldn't believe. And that actually was one of the reasons I decided to make what I might call my favorite video, which was for 50,000 subscribers. I got two of my friends to read some hate comments to me live and film my reactions, and we turned that into a sort of special for 50,000 subscribers, and that was great fun to make. But sort of fun aside, I think one of my favorite videos in terms of the content that I'm putting out that I feel most proud of, probably the ones, like I say, where I'm not necessarily on camera, but I'm talking about a topic and illustrating my points with images and videos, because they tend to be the more serious topics, and they tend to be more sort of scripted and planned out. So I feel like they have a bit more of a message to them than some of the other videos.
And I also see here that you had a lovely video about 5 months ago about Ken Ham. So even his reputation has crossed the pond, if I dare say.
Indeed, yes. Ken was always an interesting figure for me. I follow him on Twitter, and I think a lot of people have a tendency not to follow people they don't like. And, I generally stick to that, but I either follow somebody because I like them, or I follow them because I really don't. And Ken Ham's tweets, if you're not following him on Twitter, I would highly recommend it, just because, I mean, it is hilarious. You would struggle to differentiate his tweets from the tweets of a parody account. It's that bad. Like, just constantly going on about the religion of evolution and just God's intrinsic truths and morality and atheist Hitlers, and it is incredible. I would highly recommend it. So I decided, for the people who didn't follow him, to read some of the comments, his tweets for myself, and pop them on YouTube. Yeah,
it's good fun. Now, have you been to his carnival place, his museum?
I haven't, but I would absolutely love to.
Well, if you ever come to the States, if I can't give you a tour, I know lots of people in that area who will give you a private tour. Well, I guess it wouldn't be private, but they'll walk you through and show you everything. The museum is staggering. I went there about 4 or 5 years ago. Oh, gosh, no, wait, maybe it's like 8 years ago, with about 300 friends. We had a big event right after it opened, and about a year ago, I was one of the people protesting the opening of the Ark Park. And we also found out he hates when you call it the Ark Park, because it's not an amusement park. I don't know if you knew over there, but the county that the Ark Park is in is now on the verge of filing bankruptcy.
Really?
Because they made a lot of improvements to roads and their infrastructure, and they spent a lot of money and helped Ken Ham and his church spend the $100 million, and nowhere near enough people are going to the Ark Park. And those that do don't stay in the local hotels, they don't eat in the local restaurants, they don't buy local gasoline, and then they leave. And so the county is making no money, and it's about to go bankrupt. And so they just had to levy a new tax on all of the residents, and they are not happy.
Well, you mentioned just the abysmal popularity or lack thereof of the Ark Encounter Park. And it's funny, I just remember some of Ken Ham's tweets. He tweets probably more often than he should, just an image on a busy day of some people on the Ark, and says, look at all the hundreds of people enjoying true history today, and he's just it's almost like a parody. He's just trying to convince people, look, people are coming to the park. See, I told you. It's just it is something. It is something else. It's just, I genuinely would be interested to set up some kind of test where you put Ken Ham's tweets and you put tweets from a parody account, and you don't tell them which is which, and see if people can guess, because I'm telling you, like, the distinction is subtle.
No, I think that's an idea for a contest or a game show thing. If someone was so inclined, I probably won't make the time to do it, but read a parody tweet and an actual tweet and have people guess which one is real. That sounds like great fun.
Yeah, it's like I one of my patrons sent me a link once to a website he'd made, called something like, did Trump really say it? And it would have some kind of quote, and you'd have to guess, was it really said by him, or is that just made up? And it was harder than you'd think.
Well, it's funny that you went there, because the very next thing I was going to say to kind of segue is that while we're talking about crazy people with Twitter accounts, what are your thoughts on Trump, and how is the average citizen in the United Kingdom perceiving this?
Well, look, I mean, it's similar to the United States in the sense that you have three groups of people, really. There's the fully sort of anti-Trump movement. That's very alive here. You have the very pro-Trump movement as well. It's less animated because, of course, it's not directly, it's not our country. But then you do have the third group of people who just don't particularly care. I sit somewhere in the middle. I don't like Trump. I just put that out there. However, from the perspective of the UK, it seems so far away and distant, and I know that it has huge effects on this country as well. But at the same time, it just feels so surreal and like it's not really happening, because you're just sort of watching it on the TV. That I've become very detached from the whole sort of situation. However, I don't like the man. I think he's a bit of a charlatan. I don't think he's really religious. However, I think there is a lot of unfair criticism he receives, a lot of fair criticism he receives as well, but a lot of people are just as crazy on the left as the right. But no, I don't like him. I'm not excited about the future, but I'm willing to sort of wait and see, so to speak.
Very good. And what videos do you have coming up that we can look forward to? Do you know, or do you just kind of make them as they come to you?
Well, I'd like to get into a schedule. I'd like to start planning ahead, but being a student makes it incredibly difficult to even think about uploading on a regular basis, let alone plan ahead. But I do have plenty of ideas which I haven't fully fleshed out yet. My plans include, I want to make videos about the nature of atheism, the difference of atheism and agnosticism. I want to make more Bible study series, which is a series that I started, made one video on the book of Exodus, and people seem to like. So I want to cover some of the stories in Genesis. Basically, narrating the Bible from an atheist perspective in maybe 5 minutes or so. It's great fun. I want to talk about the Ten Commandments. I want to talk about specific people, Mother Teresa. I want to talk about the one video that I really want to start working on. This is something to look forward to, is the sort of questionable morality of Jesus of Nazareth. This idea that even the wonderful parts of the Bible, even the good bits, the Jesus, the New Testament, a lot of the things which Christians defend as saying, well, Christianity is great, look at this teaching from Jesus. You realize that in practice, they're not moral at all. And I can't remember who said it, but it's certainly true that a lot of Jesus's teachings are all fine and dandy, as long as you believe that the world is coming to an immediate end. If you do not believe that the world is about to end, then most of the things that Jesus taught were absolutely immoral and ridiculous.
I look forward to seeing those. Of course, a couple things pop into my mind. One, I'd love to hear your take on the whole fig tree thing. And, of course, there's the famous moment when Jesus' mom comes to talk to him, and he says, "What do you have? What do I have to do with you, or what do you have to do with me?" And sends her away. Family values, right there.
Yeah, the fig tree, that always intrigued me because, of course, one would have expected that an omnipotent being, I'm stumbling over my words here, an omnipotent being, an omniscient being, would either be able to make the tree produce some figs, or B, alternately, would know in advance that the tree did not have any figs. So to walk up to this fig tree and curse it for not having any figs, especially when it wasn't even the right season for it, seems to me very comparable to the idea of, granting human beings with sin and then punishing them for having sin. It's a sort of good example. It's almost like, one of Jesus's parables that you can use as sort of a microcosm of the whole Christian dogma as a whole. This idea that, you will be punished for having sin, yet also the teaching that you can never be without sin. It always has you in its grasp. There's no way to escape the dogma, and no way to escape the need to repent and the need to apologize for your very nature.
Well, one of my other favorite Jesus stories is my son actually figured this out when he was about 11 in Sunday school, where the devil comes and takes Jesus and takes him to the top of a temple, and he says, "Throw yourself down and let the hand of your Father catch you." And Jesus, of course, says that you can't tempt the Father. And then the devil takes Jesus to the top of the tallest mountain, and you can see every nation of the world. And, of course, my son in Sunday school raises his hand, and the teacher calls on him, and he says, "Can we at least agree that the earth is round?" And that no matter how tall a mountain, you can't see the other side of the globe. And they're just like, all right, back to our lesson. And they just don't know what to do. But it really inspired me the way he thought of it. Like we were talking about as a child, he's thinking, now, wait a minute. If Jesus is God, and God is Jesus, and God made everything, and God made the devil, and God knows the devil, why is Jesus, who is God, surprised by the devil? And doesn't the devil know that Jesus is God? And so the devil takes Jesus and says, "Turn against your Father who is yourself, and I'll give you everything that you see, which is already yours."
Well, this is the thing. It makes so little sense to me, and people defend it through all sorts of theories throughout history. I believe kenosis is the word for this idea that Jesus was sort of drained of his divine abilities when he became human, but then he's still able to, perform these miracles, and none of it seems to make sense when you give it thought. And things such as you mentioned the whole implication of a flat Earth. When I mention this idea that the Bible suggests a flat Earth, many people will say, "Well, look, there's nothing in the Bible which says that the Earth is flat." Well, that's not the point. The point is that it implies it, and B, it never says that it's a globe either. It seems like such an obvious thing. If people at the time did not know that the Earth was a globe, God may have seen it as slightly helpful to include that. And also, if God knew that one day many people would use the Bible as justification for claiming that the Earth was flat, he would also foresee that and a little sort of clause in there. The book of Isaiah, I believe, mentions the circle of the Earth. Now, if I ask you what shape a basketball is, are you going to tell me circular?
Yeah, and it's something that they, of course, will argue that you would.
Well, this is the thing. If that's another thing. They might say, well, yeah, you probably should have said globular, but it doesn't rule out the idea of a flat Earth. Well, I'm sorry, but again, God should have foreseen this and been a bit more specific. Thank you very much.
Now, do you get a lot of apologetics in England?
Not so much as in the States, at least not to my knowledge. Most of the apologetics I come into contact with is in the online space, except for a few exceptions. But yeah. I certainly see more of it coming from your side of the pond than mine.
And the way I've come to describe it is that the arguments that apologetics uses don't have to be good. They just have to be good enough.
That is That is a fine description. I might have to adopt that for myself.
Please feel free to send me a nickel every time you get a hit. But it's one of those things that I talked to someone about the story of Jephthah. I'm sure you're familiar with Jephthah and his lovely daughter that he roasted.
Yes, indeed.
And their argument was that it doesn't literally say that he burned her. She was sacrificed, which means that she left him and became a nun or something and worshipped God a different way. And I was like, no, that there's no plausible way you can come up with that story if you're reading the text. But they're like, well, you read into it, and it wasn't a very good argument at all, but it was good enough for them to be comfortable with it.
I think there's sort of two ways you can go as somebody who practices in apologetics if you come across these incredible stories. The first is to try to explain it away, because usually there is a way to sort of say, well, maybe it meant this. Or option B, you just say, well, look, I know it sounds ridiculous, but that's the Bible, so it's true. And it's just these. My favorite is the first, because when somebody says, if I'm debating with somebody and the issue of homosexuality comes up, for instance, if they say, well, yes, no, I believe homosexuality is wrong because the Bible says so, then, I commend you on your consistency, but that's kind of boring. I much prefer to have somebody who says, I fully believe the Bible, but homosexuality is okay, because that's just so much more fun, watching them try to sort of squirm about trying to justify what's written in the Bible.
Indeed.
The story of Jonah and the whale, you bring that up and Christians will instantly say, well, no, it wasn't a whale, it was a big fish.
Big fish, yes.
Well, okay, fine, Jonah and the big fish, why not? That doesn't change the objections that I have to the story in any way.
Yeah, my go-to in the States is slavery, and asking people if they are against slavery, and pretty much everybody, I mean, there's always exceptions to everything, they say that they are opposed to slavery, and then we start talking about how they're not following the Bible.
Yes, indeed.
Because that seems to be pretty clear.
I think with slavery, it's interesting because it's not so much a case of, like with homosexuality, it says you must actively stone these people. But with slaves, it's not necessarily going around saying you should own slaves. It's just saying that you can. It's permissible. It's not necessarily suggested or, commanded, but it is permissible. And that's enough for me. Because, again, that's another sort of apologetics route that they take, is they say, well, look, the Bible never says that you should own slaves. It never commands you to do so. But to me, that's just ridiculous. If the Bible said, I'm not going to say that you should rape people, but when you do, you should do it like this. That's not good enough.
Right.
I'm sorry.
I mean, if you want to get a wife, you just make sure that you rape her in the right conditions, and then she'll be compelled to marry you, and you're covered. There's a lot of things like that. Of course, anyone that works on Sunday, anyone that talks bad about a priest, any woman that has sex before marriage. Matter of fact,
or even in fact, if you are unable to prove that you are a virgin,
right.
It's not even a case of, if there's any ambiguity, if you can't prove it undeniably, you should be put to death.
And of course, my personal favorite, because it affects me, is that if you're an unbeliever, you're supposed to kill unbelievers.
Yes, I think God changes his mind a lot of the time on some of the specificities of the punishments, but I think all of the things you've mentioned indeed are certainly not looked upon favorably by God. Although it's interesting how many of them, God seems to have misspoken on many of them that Christians enjoy doing today, although he was absolutely right on the things that modern day Christians agree with.
Yes, it's an interesting coincidence, but it's only because you don't understand that there's a new covenant.
Oh, of course. I forgot. Of course, yeah.
Yeah. So
I forgot about the fact that an omnipresent, always, my word is final God can change his mind.
Yep. Well, different times, that he wrote it in a way that would appeal to the local people so they could understand it.
Well, I'll tell you another thing. This reminds me of moving on to Islam, if we may.
Yes.
I often bring up the contention of Muhammad marrying a 6-year-old, Aisha. Now, of course, he was a gentleman. It's not like he had sex with this.
That's right. He waited.
Of course,
he waited till she was 13.
He waited 2 years. Yeah, he waited till she was 9.
Oh, okay.
But one of the common defenses I hear is, well, look, that was how it was at the time. That was the culture. That was permissible. And look, it's a similar thing when people say, well, look, the laws about slavery and the laws about cutting your beard or eating shrimp or whatever were like that because of the culture of the time. And I say, well, look, condemn people for not, say, standing up to racism in the 19th century in America, because it was the culture of the time. It was the norm. However, you wouldn't idolize those people today. Someone like Muhammad, I'm perfectly willing to concede that at that time it was permissible, it was okay, it was something which was seen as, society saw as not as abhorrent or nearly as abhorrent as we'd see it today. However, people still today see this man as the perfect example of a human being, the highest man. And so if you're going to, practically de facto worship him today, then you have to judge him by today's standards. You can't judge people of the past by today's standards unless you are still praising them for everything that they are today.
I like it. Now, where do people go to get your videos?
Well, you can go to YouTube. Everything is just Cosmic Skeptic, and that's Skeptic with a K, because I may not be American, but a boy can dream. You can go to youtube.com/CosmicSkeptic or CosmicSkeptic.com. Same for Twitter, Facebook, everything.
Now, for the listeners, just to be clear, because I've experienced this before, the K is the second letter in Skeptic, not the first letter of Cosmic.
Of course, yeah, that probably could have been quite an error. Yes, Cosmic spelt normally, Skeptic spelt the American way.
Yes, or as most Americans would just accept it as the correct way.
The normal way,
yeah,
yes.
Yeah. So, and you're on Twitter. How do they find you there?
Again, Cosmic Skeptic. That's my Twitter handle.
I see a pattern.
Yeah, it's good because it's such a specific name that it wasn't taken anywhere. I also realized my name. I lucked out because I started using the J, Alex J O'Connor. I thought it sounded a bit more professional, so to speak. And I looked at domains, and to buy alexoconnor.com would have cost me thousands. To buy alexjoconnor.com, it's about $10.
There you go. Now, we almost forgot. I wanted to mention that I am interviewing you, and you're on my show because you were recommended by another YouTuber called Holy Kool-Aid.
Yes, indeed. Thomas Westbrook, Holy Kool-Aid. A man who I think I described as criminally undersubscribed. He makes fantastic content, sort of really well produced and well put together and well thought out and planned. And yet I think he's sitting around 20,000 subscribers, which is still fantastic achievement, but nowhere near what he should be at, I think.
Well, and it's one of those things, and if I may be so bold to recommend, you did a video for his channel, and he did a video for your channel. You should post your own videos on your own channel to get the views there as well.
Well, this is something we somewhat discussed. I think what it is the video that I made, for instance, they were different takes on a similar topic. So we both were talking about morality, but I was talking about the biology of morality. He was talking about the philosophy. And I fear that if I posted both videos on my channel, then my subscribers would simply be too lazy to go to his channel and go and check out that video. So I thought if I make a video exclusive to his channel, people would be forced to go and actually watch his channel and then perhaps realize that his content's fantastic and subscribe.
Very good. So once again, that is Holy Kool-Aid.
Holy Kool-Aid.
Thomas Westbrook. We want to make sure we get him mentioned a couple of times so that we've got that. And, of course, your site is Cosmic Skeptic. Is there anything we didn't cover that you want to throw in before we run out of time?
Well, not that I can think of off the top of my head. I am often asked for some book recommendations. I've just seen it on my desk. I'd like to just give a shout out to this book. I'm reading Infidel by Ayaan Hirsi Ali, and it is, I haven't got too far into it, but it is absolutely fantastic. So anybody who's listening to this now, just while I think of it, if you're looking for a book to read or a book recommendation, this should probably be your next one.
Well, it's funny you mentioned I am a fan of hers, and just a show or two ago had a 3 or 4 minute soundbite from a speech that she gave, and I think the theme was basically something like, I no longer believe my father, where she talked about things that he taught her as a child that she now cannot accept because they're awful.
which I'm currently reading about. She's got to be one of my heroes. I think she is a fantastic exemplar for feminism and not just women but people. Fantastic, one of my heroes.
Great. Well, Alex, thank you so much for being on the Phil Ferguson Show. I greatly appreciate it.
Not at all, Phil. It was great fun to make an appearance.
This survey of American beliefs showed that Americans, at a rate of between 48 and 51%, don't believe in evolution, which is like half. And on top of that 50-odd%, a further 38 to 40% of Americans believe that biological evolution has occurred, but believe that it was initiated by and has since been kind of administered by God. Leaving a very small percentage of Americans who are right. It's not my theory. But I've done material about evolution before, and in Australia and in Britain it barely raises an eyebrow. It's just worth a chuckle. But in America it's quite contentious to do comedy about evolution, you know. It gets a gasp. It's the equivalent of doing material about fisting anywhere else, you know. It's quite confronting for them. I've been heckled by a man in the front row in New York loudly defending his disbelief in evolution. I've been pulled aside in foyers by people defending their disbelief in evolution in the same terms, interestingly enough. It's the same defense that the intelligent design movement uses in the high courts of American states to try and sneak its pseudoscience into American high schools. And that defense is always, but evolution is only a theory. Which is true. I mean, it is a theory, and it's good that they say that. I think it gives you hope, doesn't it? That maybe they feel the same way about the theory of gravity. And they might just float the fuck away.
You're listening to The Bill Ferguson Show.
Hopefully you enjoyed both interviews. And we're going to go into our wrap-up phase here of the show 207. A couple quick thoughts in case I hadn't mentioned before. My house is now on the market in Champaign, Illinois. So if you're looking for a really nice house in Champaign, let me know. I'd be happy to give you a private tour. We will be moving in a few months to New Lenox area. It's the extreme southwest suburb of Chicago. It is a little east of Joliet and northwest of Kankakee, near the intersection of Interstate 80 and 355. That's going to be my new stomping ground. So hopefully I can see people in Chicago more often. And I'm also looking forward to going to the Italian-speaking meetup groups that are in Chicago, because there's not one in Champaign. I've gone once or twice before, but it's quite a journey to drive 3 hours to meet with people for 3 hours and then drive back for 3 hours. As you can imagine, it wipes out the entire day. So looking forward to that. A lot of excitement going on. And, of course, we have conventions coming up. We've already talked to Thomas True about Gateway to Reason. And we're going to have Mythicist of Milwaukee conference in the fall. And, of course, I will be at the American Atheist for their cleverly planned solar eclipse to end their conference. So a lot of fun things going on, and hopefully I get to see you at one or more of them this year. And like I said, it'll probably be a good week, maybe even two, Normally shows are a week, so let's just call it 2 weeks before the next show because I have to find someone to interview. So if you have any clever books or topics that you think I should cover, please feel free to let me know. That's Phil at PolarisFinancialPlanning.com. Yeah, it's getting late. I got lots of work to do. So going to do this and finish this up, edit the show, and work on my PowerPoint presentations for all of my talks in D.C., Philadelphia, New Jersey, Pennsylvania area. And I hope to see you out there somewhere soon. Ciao.